بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. فأما بعد, my dear brothers and sisters, we continue with the story of Musa alayhi salam and the Bani Israel. And as I keep reminding myself and you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us these stories for our benefit, so that we may learn from them and so that we may not make the same mistakes that the people of Bani Israel made with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, with respect to being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and thereby saving themselves from the consequences of disobedience. One thing which is so clear throughout the story of Bani Israel is that all the difficulties that came upon them were very clearly the result of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, if they had been obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they would have saved themselves a lot of unnecessary grief. But sadly, they were not true to themselves, not true to their own deen, and not true to their Nabi, who was one of the greatest of the prophets and messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Musa Kalimullah, Musa alayhi salam, with whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke directly. So we come from here to the story of the story which gives Surah Al-Baqarah its name. The Bani Israel, there was a rich man among them who was killed, and they could not find the murderer, and so they went to Musa alayhi salam and asked him to solve the crime. They asked him to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who had killed the man. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ قال موسى لقومه إن الله يأمركم أن تذبحوا بقرة قالوا وتتخذون هزوا قال أعوذ بالله أن أكون من الجاهلين قالوا ادع لنا ربك يبين لنا ما هي قال إنه يقول إنها بقرة لا فارض ولا بكر عوان بين ذلك فافعلوا ما تؤمرون قالوا ادع لنا ربك يبين لنا ما لونها قال إنه يقول إنها بقرة صفراء فاقع لونها تسر الناظرين قالوا ادع لنا ربك يبين لنا ما هي إن البقرة تشابه علينا وإنا إن شاء الله لمهتدون قال إنه يقول إنها بقرة لا ذلول تثير الأرض ولا تسقي الحرث مسلمة لا شية فيه قالوا الآن جئت بالحق فذبحوها وما كادوا يفعلون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and remember when Musa alayhi salam said to his people, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands you that you slaughter a cow. They said, do you make fun of us? He said, I take Allah's refuge from being among al-jahilun. So they asked Musa alayhi salam to solve this crime. They asked Musa alayhi salam to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them to slaughter a cow and take a piece of that meat and put it on the dead body of the man, to throw it on the body of the man, and Allah, Musa alayhi salam said the man will get back life and he will he will tell you who killed him. So they say, well, you are joking with us. See, this is the whole issue of people who have decided to be disobedient, because their problem is every time you tell them something, they will always come up with some excuse. So they will always have something. So first of all, you ask Musa alayhi salam to go ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now he comes back and he tells you this is what Allah is saying, and you tell him, oh, but you are joking. Now, why will you be joking? Think about this. What kind of a completely silly kind of thing that is, that you tell the Nabi alayhi salam that you are joking. Why would you be joking? Because the whole issue is you ask for something, you are getting it, but you are dissatisfied because there is no internal desire to obey. So this is unfortunately, this is the reason. Again, as I mentioned to you before, we are not here discussing the Bani Israel for the sake of Bani Israel. We are not here discussing what the Bani Israel did so that we can say, oh, they were such bad people. The idea here is to look at ourselves and say, are we doing some things like this in our life? And really, believe me, my brothers and sisters, we don't have to hunt very high and low for that. Right? You know perfectly well, and I know perfectly well what we are doing in our own lives. We are just like the Bani Israel in that when you ask a question and we want an answer, we really don't want an answer. We want an answer which suits us, right? We want an answer which suits us. Because if we were people who really wanted an answer, then if you got the answer, you would be satisfied with the answer. But no, we want an answer which suits us. It can't be an answer which we don't like, right? Now this is such a utterly ridiculous thing where we want to make a rule for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na'udhu billah, that Allah cannot change and Allah must give us an answer that we want. Allah must make a religion that we want. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a religion which is beautiful and which is hugely, hugely beneficial for us and for everyone else. I mean, this is the beauty of Islam, that Islam is not just good for Muslims. Islam is good for everyone, including those who do not believe in Islam. Islam is good for even those who deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who live among Muslims. Because the adl of Islam, the justice of Islam, the compassion of Islam does not leave them out, even though they do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? It's like the rays of the sun. The sun shines equally on whatever is there on the face of on that part of the earth where it is shining. It doesn't leave anything out. And if something wants to be protected from the sun or wants to avoid the rays of the sun, then that thing has to find a way of getting away from the rays of the sun. Now with the rays of the sun, this is possible, where you go, you hide under something, or you sit under a tree, or you sit in some shade. But from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even those who don't want it will still get it. Think about the people who disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they wake up every morning, they breathe well, they have their bodies work, they have a roof over their heads, they have shelter, they have food to eat, they have families, they have children, they have spouses, they are happy in their families, they have wealth, right? They have power, they have influence. I mean, what do they not have in terms of the material of this world? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them everything. Now that's one of the things to understand, the value of Iman. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give Iman to everybody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this dunya to everybody in whatever measure. But Iman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to some people. And that is not an arbitrary distribution by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, I mean, let me not sound here as if I am saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is discriminating in giving Iman. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presented Iman to everybody. But whoever took it, took it. And whoever didn't take it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not force it on them. Whereas with regard to other things, these are in some ways these are forced on people. I mean, hunger comes, right? I mean, you get hungry. I mean, if you don't eat, you will die. So it's forced. Food is literally forced on you. For breathing, if you stop breathing, you die. So air is forced on you. And of course, people who feel hungry, there are some people who will starve. But if they were living in an Islamic system which was functioning like an Islamic system, I don't mean today we have things, governments, and we have countries which call themselves Islamic, but they are far from Islamic. If you look at it, they have none of the goodness and the features of Islam, and which is why Islam gets a bad rap. Islam gets a bad name because people think, oh, Islam only means the cutting of hands. Because the unfortunate interpretation of Islamic law, we have taken only the criminal law and we have left out everything else, right? Yes, the punishments, the criminal punishments for crimes in Islam are very severe, but you can't just take the punishment by itself and look at it. You have to see what is it that leads to that punishment, what is that punishment seeking to do, who is the punishment protecting, who is the punishment punishing. All of these things have to be seen together, holistically, if you really want to understand the penal code in Islam or anything. I mean, you have to look at the thing holistically and completely in order to be able to understand it properly. But if you just take one piece of it, then you are going to be misled and misguided. And that's what people do. They take just one piece and say, "Oh, Islam means amputation." I mean, just go around in Muslim countries where this law is functioning and see how many 100 people you find. Right? Saudi Arabia has had it for God knows generations. How many 100 people have you seen in Saudi Arabia? So it's just but the reason why this happens is because unfortunately you don't find anything else of Islamic law. Where is Islamic law with regard to inheritance of women, for example? Where is it being implemented? Where is the Islamic law with regard to business being implemented? Where is Islamic law, which is civil law, for example, being implemented? Right? They don't do all this. The unfortunate fact of life is that the rulers of these countries, they don't implement these things because that will cramp their own lifestyle. But criminal law, they are happy to implement because again, in many of these countries, even that is not applied to the rulers or to people of influence. They manage to get away, but it's the petty thieves and so on who get themselves into trouble. So we need to keep this in mind and say that the law is just, but the implementation of that law, the way that law is implemented and enforced, this can be unjust. And this can be done in ways in which people don't see the beauty of the law. Instead of that, they get they see only the negative aspect of it. So anyway, to come back to our story, here were the Bani Israel. They asked Musa alayhi salam a question to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the murderer, who was the person who killed this man. And when Musa alayhi salam came to them with an answer, they don't want to accept the answer. So then they said, call upon your Rabb for us, that he may make plain to us what it is. So he says, so Musa alayhi salam said, Allah says, verily it is a cow, neither too old nor too young, but it is between these two conditions. So do what you are commanded. They said, call upon your Rabb for us to make plain to us its color. What color should it be? So Musa alayhi salam said to them, he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it is a yellow cow, bright in its color, pleasing to the beholders. They said, call upon your Rabb for us to make it plain to us what it is. Verily to us all cows are alike. And surely if Allah wills, we will be guided. He, Musa alayhi salam says, Allah said, he says, it's a cow neither trained to till the soil nor water the fields, sound, having no other color except bright yellow. They said, now you have brought the truth. So they slaughtered it, though they were near to not doing it. Now think about this. First of all, and then the Mufassirin and so on, they've said that obviously this is not, it was not a common color or common kind of animal, and therefore they found there was only one in the whole, among all the people there was only one such cow, and that man, literally he charged them an arm and a leg for the price of that animal. Now think about this, and this is the reason why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, don't ask too many questions, because the issue with questions is that the more questions you ask, you are going to get answers, and the more answers you get, the more you are going to find yourself in difficulty, because the more granular you get with the answers, the more difficult it will be to fulfill all of those conditions that will now become clear to you because you asked so many questions. You asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala something, Allah said, slaughter a cow, you just find the first cow you can find, slaughter it, and put the meat on the man, and the man would have spoken. But instead of that, now you ask so many questions, and you end up with this animal, which is an absolute, unique thing, and then you can't find it, and so on and so forth. Now, what Allah is saying here is the reason is not because they were so keen on the exact thing, but because actually they were trying to get out of this. So first of all, they ask a question and they say, how can we find out? Let Allah tell us. And then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, well, do it this way, and now they say, so now this means there is a cost attached to this, which means we have to spend money. So let us try to ask so many questions that we can get out of this. But you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows you, Allah knows your intentions, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows why you are asking all these questions. So now you get yourself tied into knots for no reason whatsoever. Right? There was no need to do any of this, but they brought it on themselves. Now the question to ask ourselves is, what do we do? You know and I know that fatwa shopping is a very common pastime for us in our lives, right? Fatwa shopping. You go to one alim, you ask a question, he gives you an answer, you don't like the answer, so what do? Now you go to another alim, and then you go to a third one, you go to a fourth one, you go to a 10th one, because you are looking for a particular answer. You are not looking for an answer to your question. You have already answered the question, and you are looking for somebody to confirm that answer for you. You want someone to actually. Sometimes, therefore, when people come to me and ask me a question, I tell them, why don't you tell me what's in your mind, and I will just repeat it for you. You will be happy, I'll be happy. The answer won't be correct, but doesn't matter. You are not looking for a correct answer anyway, so go away, right? Don't waste my time. Seriously, ask yourself, if you really want the truth, then you have to first and foremost be prepared to accept the truth. You have to be prepared to accept the fact that the truth may not be what you want to hear. If it is what you want to hear, good for you, but more than likely, the truth is going to be something that you don't like to hear. So if you want to put that as a precondition, to say, no, hold on, tell me the truth in a way that I will like it. And sorry, can't be done. Right? And I'm not even talking about religious things. I'm saying even people who come to me for business advice, they come to me with already their mind is made up that they want to do something in a particular way. Now they come to me and they ask me, and of course there's a preamble, and they say, you are a great consultant and you are consulting with this company and that company and whatnot. So please tell me. And when I tell them, then they argue with me. So my point is, look, you came to me, I didn't invite you. You came to me because you thought I can do something for you, right? So now I'm telling you something. Take it or leave it. Don't waste my time. Don't argue with me. Clarification, no problem. If I told you something, you want some clarity in that, no problem. But arguing is a different thing. I'm not talking about clarification. People say, no, but that can't be right. This is like a man went to a wise man, went to a sage and asked him, how do you deal with fools? People are completely ridiculous, absolute fools, and they come and ask you totally stupid questions. I've seen that happening so many times. How do you deal with that? So the sage said, I tell them you are right. So man said, no, but that can't be right. The sage said, yes, you are right. So really, think about this. This asking of too many questions, before you ask all of those questions, ask yourself internally, what is my state? Because rebelliousness is expressed through questions. Right? Asking too many questions creates actually more difficulties and narrows your choices. Now, in the case of Bani Israel, they now went to find this cow, and they found that there was only one guy who had this cow. He was an orphan, and the man said, weigh this cow in gold and give me that gold. That is the price of the cow. So they had to do that. Right? Unnecessarily they had to spend that money. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Mashiach Allah wanted to help the orphan, who probably these people wouldn't have helped anyway, otherwise, other than this. So, they said, weigh the cow in gold and give me the money. So, very important for us to ask ourselves when we want to ask questions, and especially with regard to Deen. When you want to ask questions about the Deen, ask yourself, what is this question? Is this question to get more clarity so I can obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better? Or is this question so that I can get out of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Am I looking for loopholes? Because if that is the case, then this question is an indication of rebelliousness, which is a disease of the heart that needs to be cured. The whole point of Islam is to submit. To submit. Joyfully submit, not reluctantly, not submit with anger, not submit with resentment, but to joyfully submit. Alhamdulillah, my Rabb thought of me. My Rabb ordered me to do this. Among all the people, the 7 billion people on the face of the earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling me for salah. Hayya ala salah. Huh? So I will answer. I will go and I will pray. And that is what is required. That is what we want. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to have, for a person to have a heart which joyfully submits to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that person knows that nobody loves me more than Allah loves me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves me much more than my mother loves me or loved me. Allah loves me more than any number of mothers love their children. And this is my Rabb Jalla Jalaluhu, who is calling me to come to his house. Come to my house. Ask me whatever you want. I will give you whatever you want. And I want to be resentful about that. I want to be reluctant about that. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this story. وَإِذْ قَتَلْتُمْ نَفْسًا فَادَّارَأْتُمْ فِيهَا وَاللَّهُ مُخْرِجٌ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْتُمُونَ فَقُلْ نَضْرِبُهُ بِبَعْضِهَا كَذَلِكَ يُحْيِي اللَّهُ الْمَوْتَى وَيُرِيكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. Allah said, and remember when you killed a man and fell into dispute among yourselves as to the crime, but Allah brought forth that which you were hiding. So we said, strike him, strike the dead man with a piece of it, meaning the piece of flesh of that cow, and thus Allah brings the dead to life and shows you His ayat, His proofs and His evidence, so that you may understand. So when they struck the dead cow with a piece of the flesh of the dead man with a piece of the flesh of the cow, he came back to life, he stood up, and he said, my nephew killed me for the inheritance. And then he died again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed His power to give life and death at will. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that when your hearts were hardened more than stones, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ فَهِيَ كَالْحِجَارَةِ أَوْ أَشَدُّ قَسْوَةً وَإِنَّا مِنَ الْحِجَارَةِ لَمَا يَتَفَجَّرُ مِنْهُ الْأَنْهَارُ وَإِنَّا مِنْهَا لَمَا يَشَّقَّقُ فَيَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ الْمَاءُ وَإِنَّا مِنْهَا لَمَا يَحْبِطُ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ وَمَا اللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, then after that your hearts were hardened and became as like stones, or even worse in hardness. And indeed there are stones out of which rivers gush forth. And indeed there are of them, that is stones which split asunder, so that when water flows from them, and indeed there are of them stones which fall down on the earth for fear of Allah. and Allah is not unaware of what you do. This hardness of the heart is a very lethal disease of the heart, and unlike any normal, cardiac ailment or disease, this is not something which will end with our death. This is something that carries on into our akhirah, and may Allah protect us from ourselves, and may Allah protect us from these things. It will create for us real difficulties in the akhirah. Tears are a sign of the softness of the heart. Tears shed for the fear and the love, hope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In rebelliousness, on the other hand, leads to the sealing of the doors of Hidayah. The doors of Hidayah get shut and sealed because people are rebellious. People do not want to accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla jalaluhu. Imagine how terrible that thing is. If you have anyone working for you, an employee or something, you expect a level, not just obedience, you expect a level of respect, you expect a level of deference. Yeah? In America here, people call you by name, right? Just by name. So even if it's a person working for you, he will call you, whatever your name is. He won't even say, most of them don't even say sir. This is the culture of this place. But from where we come, right, our culture is very different. So we have people don't call you by name, they call you sir, or they call you by some title. And if they are related to you, then they will call you uncle or something. So you expect this deference, you expect this, respectful attitude, and this is our Islamic way, that we treat our elders and treat teachers and so on with respect. You don't call your teacher just by name, right? You call the teacher by name, or you say Sheikh so and so, or Maulana or Hazrat or something. You don't just call the person by name. It would be highly disrespectful and very impertinent and very an indication of your complete lack of manners and lack of upbringing if you just called your teacher by name. With respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the teacher taught you something, right? The teacher didn't make you the teacher, not your father or mother. Father and mother, again, in this culture people call them by name, but in our culture we don't. You call them Baba, father, daddy, whatever, right? And so also with your mother. Now my point is that nobody in the world has created you. No one in the world actually feeds you. Even the people who feed you are feeding you what Allah created for you to eat. Now, despite all that, even though the way we benefit anyone who works for us, or anyone or when you are children and so on, even though it is minimal with respect to or compared to what Allah has given us, we expect obedience, we expect deference, we expect respect. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we act as if we are na'uzubillah, we are superior to Him. Right? Rebelliousness, completely not willing to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to do, taking the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, interpreting it in our own ways, and you say, well, this doesn't make sense to me, in my opinion. Make these words haram on yourself. In my opinion. Never ever say that with respect to the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You and your opinion have absolutely zero value in Islam. Zero value. So never ever say that, in my opinion. The rebelliousness, therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has infinite patience. But even the patience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after some time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shuts the doors of Hidayat. What Allah is saying really is, okay, this is what you want, okay, take it. I'm trying to stop you from destroying yourself. I'm trying to stop you from harming yourself. I'm trying to stop you from doing something which is going to put you in serious problems. But you do not want to accept that. You don't want to accept that. You want to continue with your bullheadedness. Okay, go ahead. Do it. Suffer. Now what is it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Makes no difference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether you suffer, you don't suffer, makes no difference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, okay, do it. My brothers and sisters, tell me, what sense does this make? Why do we refuse to accept the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu is that He gave us this, that He, that He, everything we know, we owe to Him, Jalla Jalaluhu, and that whatever He tells us is for our benefit. Why on earth do we refuse to accept this? Think about that. Why would we refuse to accept? What benefit do we get from not accepting this? Yeah? Seriously, I think, let me end this today here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to do that which is pleasing to Him. I want to leave you with this thought and ask you to ask yourself this question. What is my attitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The purpose of this whole story of Bani Israel, as I told you, we are not criticizing them. We are looking at ourselves. And we are saying, what is my attitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I want to leave this with you. I want to reflect on it for myself, and I want you to reflect on it for yourself and say, what is my attitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it an attitude of joyful submission, of humility? Do I go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as one in need? Or do I go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as, you are incidental, I don't care. I don't need you. I will not obey. I will do what I think is right. Which one? Seriously, think about this. Because it is a very serious matter. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and save us from ourselves and from shaitan and from our nafs. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.